It's a great pleasure to be here. I came to think about how I joined the library work yesterday. When the interview with Anne, she couldn't remember what brought her in. I vividly remember what brought me in. It was a combination of love and luck. So I went to high school in a little city in the north of Denmark, and my girlfriend at that time, she wanted to be a nurse. And the only place she could be that was in a city somewhat south of where we lived, so I wanted to go there too. They had three types of education of nursing. One was a new library school that had been over there, another was engineering, and the third was some business thing. And I was kind of, any of these three could kind of probably work for me. And then my older sister, she lived in Copenhagen, she was 6 years older than me, and she had done history at university, but flunked out because she got pregnant, had a child. And then she started in the library school in Copenhagen. And she was 1 year in that education, and she said, well, you can have the books. They are free because I bought them already. So love and love brought me into library world, and I have never regretted it for a second. So anyway, we have a big program here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the library and the situations here and where I come from, something about user involvement, partnerships, maker culture, something about fake news and misinformation, social challenges, equity, and the library spaces. So, libraries in the industrial age, in the Western world, were a lot about democracy, free and equal access to information, education, culture, and where I come from, the libraries were a tremendous success, used by 60–70% of the population frequently. The infosphere has changed though. So when we talk about the infosphere, everything that people sort of orient them towards. In 2000, the infosphere of a person in the Western world were a lot about television, a lot about printed books, radio. The open internet had sort of, gained a lot of ground. Still newspapers, journals, movies, etc. And the library had a prominent position in that infosphere, delivering a lot of that content. 15 years later, the infosphere has changed dramatically. The open internet is a very big part. Social media had come along. And radio, television, still something. Of course, printed books to a certain degree and so on. But the library is not sort of in the central area anymore on that information provision. So the infosphere has changed. That means a great change in the framework of libraries, where libraries work. All the media development, all the social media, internet means, at least where I come from, quite a dramatic decline in loans of physical materials. I would suspect that is also the case over here. Not to the same degree as we have experienced probably, but still, you will probably have experienced a kind of decrease in loans. Resource strains, cutbacks, new tasks, trying to reach the non-users of libraries, still a big task. New user needs, media literacy, 21st century, literacy skills, reading, still a big thing, lifelong learning, community engagement and community formation. New tasks. But there's also a lot of new opportunities, the digitization in itself, digital services, self-service, citizens involvement, etc. So that framework has changed. Question for you, should libraries go a lot more digital? And that is a question, and I will ask someone to answer that question. If nobody volunteers, I will pick one. That one will be you, Dylan, because you laugh so loud. So, what do you say?
Well, I think think it's kind of critical to keep up with the infosphere. I agree. I mean, I'm the broadband consultant, so I'm a little biased, but I would think so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll stick with that. And then, this is the apps that any average Dane is exposed to. That is the digital sort of easy thing to reach from the smartphone. So you can see there's a lot of choices. This is the library's app. So you can see the fight for attention is enormous in the digital realm. So that's why the libraries, when you say that the libraries, for instance, in the good old analog world, were used by 60–70%, then the best Danish sort of digital services in libraries are used by 8–9% of the population, which is a lot, actually, when you come to think of it. Anyway, so the user's information environment is this. This is the library collection. This is the physical collection. I mean, give or take a few percent. So, we need to reinvent the library, to think differently about what we are and what we can do. New products, new alliances, new ways of funding. So what has changed? This, as you see here, that's a change, but that is an impossible change. It cannot remain the same when you grow. This is another type of change that we know from life. That's not how we want the libraries to change. Because we know how that happens. And we probably won't get any more money. We have to think about that. The public sector is always fighting, and you know, the libraries are not necessarily the ones who will win the battle with the elder care homes and the kindergartens, which is often the case that we have to fight to get the funding. So, we need to innovate. What is innovation? Well, innovation is something new that has value for the users. Very simple, very easy. But value for the users, something new. And when you think about the innovation processes, there are two basic phases, a divergent and a convergent phase. So when we're talking about the divergent phase of an innovation process, we start out a project, there's something that we know already, there's something that we know we don't know, so we need to find information around that, and there's certainly something that will appear in the process that we didn't know, and that we didn't know that we didn't know. In the convergent phase, and that is normally the phase that we are very good at in the libraries, that is where we make action plans. That is where we, do all the stuff, the delineations and everything, the plans and so on. We're good at that. We're not necessarily so good at this phase. In the middle, we have a groan zone. That's where despair happens. That is where we hate each other in the project because nothing is moving and so on. But that's very normal. That is how these processes go. Again, if you want a small innovation, you have a short divergent phase. Because you don't ideate enough. You don't get enough ideas. People tend to take the first idea they get and think that's also the best idea. It's very seldom the case. Very seldom. Actually, you need more commitment in that process. And then if you're doing it really wrong, you have a very long convergent phase. So you get into the trouble with the time to market. Sometimes when you have done your project, the world has moved on. So instead, you want to change really, you gotta, work in that divergent phase. Get a lot of ideas, do a lot of prototyping, ideation, etc. And then when you get to market, very fast. Okay, this is one of my favorite pictures. That was from our whole library. And that is how we work together. So this is actually now, at that time, she was working in the libraries as a kind of project manager. She's now head of the library. That guy is from the architectural school. That guy is from Aarhus University. He's a librarian. That's a library worker. And he's a janitor. And this is one of our many projects where we tried out something in the library, working with the community, working with other resources in the community. So, user involvement, partnerships. I've been a civic servant for many years, and when you invite the public to something, planning, meeting, something like that, which is an obligation in Denmark, probably also over here, it tends to be very choreographed, very dull. And now we have worked for a number of years with a much closer cooperation with the citizens, co-production, user-driven innovation, etc. Sharon Arnstein, who died some years ago, way back in 1969, she made that ladder of citizen engagement, which is kind of really good. So a lot of politicians say, okay, let's invite citizens, but we don't really want to change our opinions. We are already there. That is on the bottom rung of the ladder. That is manipulation. Maybe therapy. People can let out steam if they're angry about something. Okay, they come to the meeting, they get angry, they let out steam. It's probably good for them, but we won't change anyway our opinion. Tokenism. I would say in Aarhus, we were around here some 10, 15 years ago about informing the citizens, and to a certain degree consulting. But we have moved up to actually give away power from the city to the citizens and doing partnerships. And this is how it looks. The citizen involvement, lots of different formats, meetings, workshops, idea pitching, user-driven design. This is from one of our branches where we were making a new kind of service where we deliver books to certain segments of that neighborhood. And they were engaged in how will we make that service happen. And you can see it's very simple. Just bringing up, that's a mock-up to see what will work and what won't work. You're working with focus groups, World Cafe format, where we pitch ideas with citizens and write them down, and you can see that drawing on the wall that sort of document what is going on. Vision creating, working together, prototyping. That was a method we used a lot when we were in the old library before we went to the new library. So we would ask citizens, we would also ask staff to take pictures of what should come with us and what should stay and discuss why. Gave us a lot of insight. Village square formats. And using lead users. Here we hired students from the university to work 6 hours per week. They had salary. We did proper interviews. We picked one who was really good at social media. We picked one who was really good at literature. One who was really good at search methodologies, etc. And we worked with them. We called them mind spotters. And our librarians were mind keepers. We sort of made a universe around them. You see that caravan. We brought it around the cityscape. And we were up to primary schools, secondary schools, and these mind studies would teach the kids how to, conduct proper searches and about literature, working with teachers, etc. These are some of those people. We work with participatory design. We do not sort of launch a digital service without having tested and worked with citizens to see how they would take it. This was an interesting project where we worked with children for a summer. So these children would make, cardboard models of the new library as they saw it, and then they would comment. We would discuss. This guy would sort of ask questions to the kid, and that guy, you see, he was documenting everything. So we put it into the architectural competition for the new library, and the architects had to relate to what the kids had said. And in the beginning, they thought we were kind of joking, so they kind of ignored it. But they would call back to the table, the architects, say, hey, you have to relate to what it is. And that was actually, the architect came back to us and said, well, this is actually really good because we get a lot of ideas. ideas from this, not necessarily precisely what the kids had said, but it sort of brings our brain into a different mode. That was great. Lunch break and discussions with the kids, and documenting this particular girl, she wanted to hear birds singing in the library. And it took a while before we sort of got around to installing 2 soundscapes in the libraries that can actually emulate both birds singing and other, ambient sounds and so on. So, in that process, we learned a lot, and we have worked with Chicago Public Libraries and IDEO, sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to create that design thinking toolkit that anyone can download from the net. And it's kind of gives a lot of methodologies to design thinking, which is really about accelerating innovation. So partnerships are probably the thing that has changed the libraries most where I come from. Creating partnerships. So we use this thinking model about partnerships that we call the mash-up library. So if you make websites, you know that mash-ups are websites where you embed stuff into the website that is being done by someone else. So you can, through technologies like widgets or web services, you can bring in sort of the TV program or the weather forecast or something into your own web page. So it looks as if it is part of your service, although somebody else maintains it. So we took that idea and brought it back to the physical library. And so it's kind of like a Lego construction. So we have different services in the library. Most of them will be familiar for you. And a lot of them are actually done by partners. Other NGOs, not-for-profits, or other public services are actually doing those services. We curate, we bring it into the library. And they're not permanent, not necessarily, they could be, but not necessarily. So this is a kind of a thinking model. And the beauty of it is that it takes form after the local community. So it is what is available, which good services could be built in a partnership with someone in your community. That has really changed a lot. We get a lot of new resources and skills in the library. Knowledge, inspiration, increased network, much more diversity and actually quality in the service production. Librarians are not necessarily the best at everything, so we get a lot from that. Much more communication, legislation, new ambassadors for the libraries. So we work with 3 levels. Strategic, that's when I have to do a kind of signed agreement with someone. There's never money between us. We never pay, they never pay. But there's a lot of in-kind, of course. There's a lot of time and work. So the strategic, I did one with the university where they came and we did a lot of experiments in the libraries where we involved the citizens in. Program-based is aligned with our strategy and the programs that we do. Say we have a period where we maybe concentrate on emerging technologies. So we try to find partners that knows about that, and we work with them. And then the network-based, they're very much based on the personal network of anyone working for the library. So we had this children librarian who knew this person from an NGO that worked with children and families. They together put up a program of 100 children days in the library in 2017. So we had 100 events going on in that year, and I knew about it when I read it in the program. So that was a children's librarian that just did it. And that is also one of the things that works in partnership. If you sort of open up and have staff actually do what they can, because staff is amazing in general and can do a lot. So now we have more than 130 different partnerships just for the main library. Branch libraries have their own partnerships. So that means that in one week we could have, this is a random week, November, I think that was 2017, 42 activities. None, or mostly done in partnerships. 42 activities for 1 week in one library. So, partnerships works. Maker culture, co-creation, you know all about it. Inspiration came from US. We have adopted that in most Scandinavian libraries. We did it in different formats. Many years ago, this is from our own main library. We moved into the new main library in 2015. This is a hackathon that we did over a weekend. See this guy getting tired? And these are People's Lab, as we call them, kind of a maker space, innovation, all kinds of services, and you see all kinds of making, very popular in all generations. See GrandDad helping out the kids. And we work with partners. This is from Open, he's from an NGO called Open Space Aarhus, and he's a tech student, and he and his colleagues comes and helps us with these maker spaces. This is how it looked in the old library. This is in our new library, where we actually made this tweens lab, where we can sort of get rid of the most smelly stuff, and you know, it's well organized. Mini maker fair. This is a maker fair where we bring out the 3D printers and bugs and so on for the occasion. We do not have it permanently because we don't want people just to look at it and then walk past and then they think they know everything about it. We've seen it so many times, kind of boring. No, we always create events around it. And as you can see, it's very popular. In all generations. And, you know, creating those events in the open space. We use the open space a lot. We have a lot of open spaces in the libraries. And you see, it creates affordances, it creates opportunities for engagement. Look at that guy. Isn't he inviting that kid to come join us? You know, so having things going on in the open space where everyone can see it actually creates a lot of things. Opportunities. This is from a drone workshop. You see the girl, she's flying with the drone. Again, we work with partners, the Drone Flying Club. They know everything about drone flying. Here we work with Coding Pirates, a national scheme in the library, Legal Milestone. And we do these open culture days. So the library was actually, we were creating, because we have an IT department. I was one of the library leaders. I didn't want to outsource IT. I wanted to keep it in-house because, and we also have the expertise. So actually that has grown now to quite a big entity, and we do a lot of things for the city. So what we did was we built a platform that exhibits all the data that the city creates, all the, you know, all the sensors data around traffic, water, everything. So all these data sets, they are collected and put up on that platform so anyone can use them and build services around them. And then we do events around these open data. So we invite young developers to come to the library and work for a weekend to create service ideas on top of these open data. And we bring in mentors, and we have prizes for the winners of the competition. These guys, they won the first one, which were around cultural data that was put into the platform. That was, for instance, data from the city archive, where volunteers had put in a lot of data that has been digitized. So these guys, they created an app on top of those data that is used now by several city archives in Denmark. And they created a little company on top of that. So the prize for them, that was a full day with an accountant and a lawyer to set up their company. That was what they got in prize, and they have been prospering. So, and here's the Open Energy Days. So again, open data happening in the library. We invite and organize the event. These young developers will create something on top of it. We get good press on that. And it's kind of great fun and innovation happening. Tourism days, design thinking camp for citizens in Aarhus, working with problems of the community to find solutions, at least discuss solutions. not necessarily they bring out the best solutions, but you get the discussion going, the democratic discourse in community. So, misinformation, we all know that, that's a big thing. Right now, I just heard this morning that Trump is in some kind of predicament, and again, and there's a lot of, well, anyway, so this is misinformation. So what can the libraries do? What do we do? Well, internationally, we have made this awareness campaign through IFLA, the World Organization for Libraries, how to spot fake news. But that's kind of awareness. We know about fake news, but what can we actually do about it? Of course, information literacy instruction in the library is important. This is a format that we use where we invite school classes to libraries, and we try to bring in experts that volunteer for a panel. And the kids, they have an opportunity to sort of bring forward questions pre the event, what is on their mind and so on. So this event was about the war in Syria. Of course, that has affected very much Europe, and we have a lot of refugees and so on. And the kids were wondering, you know, what is this ISIS thing, and they kill people, and will they come here, and what is actually going on, and stuff like that. So there were kids around 11, 12 years old, and they were worried. But the experts could sort of walk them through what was going on in a good manner, and that actually, I think, takes away some of the anxiety and brings in a kind of understanding in the kids. And they worry more than we sometimes think. So, and in general, bring in experts to the library, and there are experts around. You know, they don't have to have a big sign saying expert or professor, but any community has some knowledge that can be exploited in the libraries. Bring in trustworthy public figures, public debate. This is from our library. You can see it's a very versatile library. We have our main library. But also healthcare info, where we bring in, you know, from the health authorities to talk about nutrition, etc. Knowledge creation. Truth about nutrition. This is from one of our branch libraries. Discussion around, this is not good for you. These are very sugary, and that kind of thing. So, also information, communication, technology, literacy, 21st century research. All of these activities is actually building trust in society and trying to mitigate, alleviate all the bad things about misinformation. Social challenges is really becoming more and more the big issue in libraries, especially in the US, not so much in Scandinavia. But these enormous changes in society has, of course, great and very bad consequences. So a lot of neighborhoods have very negative images, gangs, drugs, homelessness, etc. So it's very visible in also in Seattle, where I live now. Man, it's so crazy to see how affluent. That is probably one of the richest places in the world altogether. And then see how many people that actually are not part of that and not part in a very bad way. So what can the libraries do? How do we include people who really are in a bad way with struggles with literacy, having difficulty finding employment, etc. That I think is the biggest challenge for libraries over here. It's very much about equality, diversity, and inclusion. And it's very, very easy to illustrate on that kind of point, but it's very hard to actually work. It's very hard to do. But we have to do it. And the traditional way that we have done in general in society is the need-based approach, We identify the needs in the community, and then we bring in some stuff to alleviate that, and then sometimes we just leaving it. Sometimes we just drop it down from top into the community and hope for the best, which is not a good strategy. Luckily, that strategy has changed. So now we are much more into the asset-based approach where we find out where are the resources in this community? How can we help? This is from one of our branch libraries in Idaho, which is a very, very predominantly refugees and immigrants living in that area. And we work in the libraries to bring out the resources. And there are so many strong resources in that community. They are just not allowed by society to prosper. But libraries can do a lot to alleviate that. So we work closely with representatives from these different communities. And it's about mapping the assets, finding out where are the individuals that can actually help here, what other types of institutions would be interesting to partner up with, etc. And that is the library. So we get out of the libraries, we work with elderly care and elderly people. We work with locals in the areas to design services that would be relevant, design programs that would be interesting for the local community. We, of course, do a lot of outreach in the communities. We work with all kinds of representatives from different groups, and both ethnics and gender-wise. We go on home visits and have discussions with people on what is important for them. Before we design services, we do these gardening meals, and we have the same kind of programs over here. So it's not new in any way. It's more that we bring it into a different mindset that works. So one thing, so we were just starting out this presentation with, should the libraries go much more digital? Personally, I believe that the greatest asset that the libraries have is staff and space. The spaces are so important because there are so few free and open and accessible spaces left in society that anyone can come to, no matter their beliefs, their convictions, etc. So the library space are really important. And if we look at the library space, we have to think of it differently. So it's not anymore spaces for media, it's the space as a medium that is interesting. How can the space serve as a medium, as a place where information change hands? It is what happens on site, not what is online, that is interesting. Information and data as such is not that interesting. What is interesting is to place data and information into context, to give it meaning and significance, bring it into discussion, and use it for pointing out stuff. The libraries are very credible. There's an enormous trust in libraries by the population. It's not necessarily fact-based. I remember when I was a young librarian, we did this survey in Denmark, and they did the same in Norway. We asked reference questions to reference departments, and about 50% of the answers were correct. 50%. So we could have rolled the dice, kind of. It was kind of interesting. The funny thing is, it didn't really matter, because, just having the discussion. Of course, they weren't that wrong, but they were not precise. So anyway, it's much more about the credibility of libraries. It's about meeting people, it's about experiments, it's about looking at the visitor as a resource. People who come into the libraries, they bring in something, they have abilities and brainware, and they are not using our resources, they are bringing in resources. We are not neutral, we have certain values in the libraries, you know them. It doesn't have to be that serious all the time. It could be fun.
it's okay to be loose in the libraries. Things that can happen. One day I went down to the open area in my library, and there was these 5 guys that all of a sudden stepped together, and then they started singing. It turned out to be a choir from Norway. They were so amazed about this great library, so they just wanted to perform a song in the middle of everything. So that is what can happen. Shared spaces shape our interactions. That's a citation from Irving Palaces for the People, a relatively new book. And how social infrastructure can help fight inequality. And social infrastructure. Libraries are one of the most important parts of social infrastructure. Social infrastructure is something physical. So the physical space of libraries is part of the social infrastructure, like parks, playgrounds, etc. But the libraries are unique in that anyone can come in. Think about playgrounds, for instance. If I come as a sort of much more than middle-aged gentleman sitting in a playground nowadays, that would not be good somehow. So there you go, a library. I can go to the library, not in the children's. So all the things that can happen in the library through your partnerships. That is about election meetings, so civic engagement, democratic debate. Now in Denmark we have a lot of political parties, so here we basically have 2. We 13 different parties in Denmark were part of the newly election that we had. Only I think 8 got into parliament. Anyway, startups. We work a lot with startups, young people starting up businesses in the library. Again, we have a partner. There's an NGO that works with startups and helps startups and so on. So we create that. That is in the middle of our new library. So the library is very much organized around having that type of activities and events. This is a different, same spot. Different event, Children's Literature Festival. And you see this is actually a wheelchair ramp. So that space here is what we would call a liminal space. That is a space that sort of brings people from one level to another. There's a staircase out here, and then that's the wheelchair ramp, and that gives 5 plateaus up here. So the architects, they wanted us to place shelves on these plateaus here. And we said, no way, this room is way too beautiful to put all these bookshelves. Which then we had to make a trade-off and have higher shelves other places in the library than we actually really wanted. Still, that has been tremendous, because that is smack in the middle of the library, and we can have all kinds of arrangements there. That was that was a challenge for ourselves to say, okay, then how do we organize that? We need to have something going on here. And so we outsourced to our internal departments to create something to the partnership. So our IT department, they have level 3, and it's up to them to find partners and do something interesting there. So we just coordinate everything and put it in the program, work with partners, and then things are happening. This is another place in the library. This is the families and children's area. We do not have a children's library. We have a families and children's area. We want to keep the families and the children together because they can do good and interesting stuff together. They can play together, which is very important. So this is, again, flexibility in space. This is now something is happening on the floor. Here something is happening up here, children's choir. Something is going on down here, and the children are sitting here. Lectures, of course, is happening. Cafe, where you can sort of hang out. But also quiet and contemplation. Little oasis is in between the shelves. Reading area, open. And this is again, you see the wheelchair, the enormous wheelchair ramp. This is when nothing is going on. And you can see, even when nothing is going on, something is going on. This is a social space. These guys are talking to each other. another social space down here. And over here, we have a communal space. They're not talking, but they are seeing each other. They are experiencing the otherness of other people, which is, again, really important to see. Well, they might look different, they might have different opinions and so on. Still, we all people. Pram parking, again, creating an affordance, a possibility to engage. And that is just next to the topless area in the library. So we had to, actually we have organized a nice place where people could put their prams in a closed space, but we found out that that was not good because nowadays everything is in the pram. It's like a prairie wagon. It's enormous prams, so we had a place to get close to where the action was happening. And that actually became a really good thing. And of course, the library is a safe place for everyone. And we have, you know, we have people, not to the same degree though. We do not have homelessness in the same way as you experience over here, not nearly, not really, but we do have it. So, playfulness in the physical space. It's very important to have that. So reading together in the library, being inspired, reading in solitude, children's theater, board games, chess. This little guy here, he is the champion of the local chess club. He is so good, and this guy is getting beat. Cardboard knights, they have been using the bottles, etc. So they have built this armory out of cardboard, and now they're exercising. Creative play, all kinds of creation. Of course, in Denmark, has to be Lego, big Lego, other types though. And of course, reading and driving is not recommended. Outside of the library, we have the playground. It's called the Globe, and first level, and that is the Chinese dragon facing east and the Russian bear. We have to be a little bit of a daredevil to take that. The African savanna with the gorilla and the bald eagle facing west, the U.S. and the Icelandic volcano. So digital presence in the library. Now we use a lot of screens to sort of advertise what is going on in the library. Everywhere we have these screens, and we have made the software to film in. So that created a new position in the library. So we have now a digital editor who is sort of responsible for how our screen presence looks in the library and outside of the library. We made a deal with the city, so a lot of library content is displayed also at the football stadium and so on. And it's everywhere in the shelves. So we worked a lot with universities' IT departments and developed a lot of different things. So these interactive tables we used for exhibition, that was when David Bowie died. So we made this little exhibition and some of his music and stuff, pictures and so on the table. This is a kind of vendor machine sort of thing where you can press a button and you will get book front pages and little explanations about these books that are available in the library. She's using it. And the interactive floor that we actually worked, that was, we made the first versions in 2003, and since a little company, we worked with the university, and then eventually some of the university people created a little company that now sells these interactive floors. There are 15 different games on them, some educational and some just for fun. That was our game alley. So we have a game alley in the library where different games are to fun, including the old school arcade game. And the parents, they are teaching their kids. Again, we want to keep together. So this was the things that we used when we were young. This is now they're taking selfie. Interactive sandbox where we project different colored light down on the sand, which creates the most amazing landscape. So Snow on the top of mountains, blue waters. Down in the bottom as you stack the sand. And the buts, because we have augmentations in the library. So the reason why we can run this big library that is open from 8 in the morning to 9 p.m. with 5 staff members. We have 1.3 million people coming into the library every year. Because we have automated. We have automates for everything and self-service for everything. So we have this augmentation system where that system knows every shelf in every branch library. We have 18 branch libraries, 1 main library. And so when gardening books are scarce in one library, the system automatically takes out gardening books from other places that has been delivered in and we will bring it to that library. Floating collections, workflow, organization, shelving block. That's only a prototype. Take it easy. It doesn't exist in reality. That one exists in reality. That's a clever robot. We call it Norma. We have 2 of them. And she speaks quite good Danish now. And she's giving a little lecture to the kindergarten. So why do we do that robot work? We do that to engage people in the discussion about the robots in society. These kids have parents who are not working in factories anymore because the factories first we outsourced everything to China, etc. Then we took it back. And now we do it in Denmark, but it's robots who's doing everything. And it's invisible because it's behind the walls in all the factories, but it is already there. So what are the implications for society? We need to get that discussion going. How do we disperse all that wealth that is generated? So it's not just on a few hands. How do we create an equitable and just society? And we start in the beginning. So we have learned a lot. We have learned to make partnerships, address community needs, co-create, co-produce, integrate user-generated knowledges in our services, liberate the library from the brand of the books. There's nothing wrong with books, but books are instruments. They're not the end. The end is knowledge creation. That is lifelong learning. Books are good instruments still, but they're certainly not the only ones. Think relations, build value chains, universes, make space for transformation. Don't be afraid of having spaces that are not programmed. Something will happen. Teacher, tutor are the roles. Those are really important roles for librarians nowadays. Teacher, tutor, project leader, maybe sometimes designers, facilitators, professional hosts with a very service-oriented mindset. So this is one of my favorite quotations from a Norwegian library researcher. Libraries are low-intensive meeting places and creators of social capital and trust. That is so important. That is so important. There's not many of those. This is our libraries in 2017 when we were European Capital of Culture. 75,000. We are a city of about 340,000 inhabitants. So 75,000 people gathering around the library. So, how can spaces be created in which citizens can discover their capacity to respond or to generate change? That is what libraries are all about. And don't be intimidated by that, humongous library, because that change can happen anywhere in libraries, small as big. So it's not about having big libraries. Of course, that's nice, but it's not about that. I met this Greek librarian working on an island. He and his wife came to a library that was totally run down, holes in the roof, rats on the floor, what have you. They went around in the neighborhood, knocked on doors and said, hey, do you want to help us create a great library here? And the neighborhood said yes. They did, and they have now a marvelous library, working well in that little island. So, thank you very much for your patience. Any questions? Any comments? Yeah.
Danke for the wonderful presentation. That's awesome. My question is, when you're doing orientations for people who are coming into your library, what are the key things that you teach people in your orientation to the library?
So you mean so that staff? Yeah. So one of the things we do is that new staff, we create these meetings where I would talk about library values, etc. So it's very much about understanding sort of what is it that the libraries are about. And it is fantastic to see young people, how easy they grasp that. And they already have that precondition. Maybe sometimes they think libraries are a little bit boring, and maybe they could have that notion, well, they're kind of outdated, what do we need them for? And so, but just talking about the values and the spaces, etc., the learning opportunities for the general population, the social. Marcellus, you once at a course in you talk about social consciousness. I like that very much. Say a few words about that, because I think that's probably one of the most important.
Thank you, Rolf, and I was not expecting to speak this early. As I'm still writing my speech for tomorrow, so it'll look very similar. But there is something that we use at SPL called the Socially Conscious Library, where we're stepping into a space where we can't solve every problem that comes in our doors. We just can't. But what we can do is we can take a socially conscious mindset to that work, which means that I can change my mission, I can change my policies, I can train my staff to do this work, which means I don't have to be socially just, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I can't correct the ills of homelessness with a budget of $80 million and 75% of that goes to personnel and staff. 12% goes to collections. I just don't have the money to do that. But what I can assure that person walking in the door is that my policies won't offend you. My staff will be trained to do the work that you need. They can answer your questions. We won't be surprised when you use a pronoun that doesn't match with your outward representation. So we tend to focus on just being socially conscious as opposed to being socially just. So that was it.
Yep. Any other questions? Yep.
I'm just curious when or how the mindset was changed on the folks utilizing your libraries from like consumer and client to someone that you're serving, because instead of being encouraged to call them patrons, unfortunately a lot of times around here we're encouraged to call them customers and expecting some kind of transactional thing to happen, often influenced by living in a very highly capitalist society. So how and when did that change for the libraries that you've experienced?
Took a while. So yeah, I totally agree. We have very deliberately not been talking and tried to eradicate the idea of the users of the libraries as customers. We use a lot of techniques though, from retail, etc., but they're not customers, they're citizens. They own the place, which is and that is true, a lot of discussions, deliberations, etc., inside our staff, that we reach that understanding. So we have a methodology of innovation where we each year call out into the organization of ideas and innovation. And then we bring in, all the ideas. You just have to write half a page of the idea. And then we pitch it. Then they would, the leaders, we would be there, and people from the organization, they would pitch their idea. We would discuss it. And then we would give them time off to work on their project. We would support them in creating budgets and writing grants, proposals, etc. So we gain a lot of external funding for innovation projects. In that process, we also discuss the values that is connected to libraries. So all the time, sort of reconfirm almost. And it sounds a little bit religious, it's not, but then it's very important.
Go back to the slide, the equality, equity, and enrichment.
Sure. You have been witness to 174 slides by the way. You have a strong brain capacity. I'll tell you that. We're getting there, I think. Well, you get it backwards, everything. I haven't skipped it, have you noticed? Where it is. Yeah. There we go. Oh, I think we'll put up the thing, Dylan, so on a web page or something.
Okay.
So you don't have to.
I think we have time for one more question. Keep handing available.
I was just wondering, because I was madly trying to take notes on everything, and I want to take your brain home with me, because I love all of these ideas. I'm wondering what resources we can go to online. If you have a webpage or something that you have put together a lot of these resources that we can look at, where can we go to find more information about what you're doing?
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one because most is in Danish, you know, Google and so on. But I would encourage you to have a look. Maybe you can see a lot from the images on Instagram. There's a lot of images from Doc One, and the hashtag is DOKK and then a one. That's one place. Then I'll look this one up, and then we have some strategy papers that is referred to, Danish legislation, that kind of thing. I don't know how interesting that would be really. So most is set in our doing rather than in long papers, I'm afraid.